Alrighty, so starting in October, I'm going to let you guys choose where I go and basically what videos I film. We are on the Jackrabbit Trail, I think. Nope, we're on the Coyote Trail. And there are actually 1.5 million acres to the Desert Wildlife Refuge. We're just taking the little trails that are behind the visitor center. Crawfish or crayfish, whatever you say, were introduced to the Corn Creek area, which is part of the Desert Wildlife Refuge, and we know that they're an invasive species, so that's why they built up cement around the ponds to make it more difficult for crayfish to come from the wetlands behind me and get into the other water sources where other things need to survive. I don't know if you saw my other video about the hidden forest hike or the game warden cabin, but it is actually part of the Desert Wildlife Refuge also. So 1.5 million acres covers a lot of ground. It's fake. Coyote aren't the only type of wild animal here at the Desert Wildlife Refuge. There's actually 320 different species of bird. So that's quite a bit, and that's why it's important to have this refuge where these animals can be protected. And there's also bighorn sheep. Obviously, we already mentioned coyote. What else? Different types of reptile. So this place has a lot of different variety of animals. A couple named George and Clara Richardson. They moved here in the early 1900s, and they moved here from Utah. They actually planted some fruit trees. Looks like we have pomegranate behind me. And they also used this area as a bootleg area where they created or manufactured gin. And they were actually bootlegging alcohol during the Prohibition era. I am starting a cabin series. I actually started this when I hiked to the Hidden Forest game warden cabin, and there's actually a cabin here at the Desert Wildlife Refuge, the Corn Creek area. It's called the Railroad Tie Cabin, and it's coming up. I don't think we can go in, but this cabin is awesome. Brucey, no. Brucey. Looks like a pea pan in there. I'm not sure. They keep it nice and clean in there, that's for sure. I always find it interesting the way they build these cabins, basically in a perfect square. Definitely different from how they do things today. Awesome, cute little cabin. I wish I could go inside. The house was, or the cabin was constructed out of railroad ties because obviously finding wood in the desert is difficult. The cabin was constructed in 1920 or the early 20s, and they used railroad ties because the nearest railroads here, like railroad systems, were basically Tonopah and a little bit south, but they used railroad ties from railroad tracks that weren't being used anymore, and so they used what they could to build the cabin, and that's why people used railroad ties to build houses. I actually grew up in a cabin that was built out of railroad ties in the 1930s, so I think this is why cabins intrigue me so much. I just love watching the history and learning a little bit about our area. The Desert Wildlife Refuge actually built this whole building. I'll stand back and show you. But they built this building to protect the endangered pupfish that are actually native to this area of Nevada. They're an endangered species, and they built this house with, it's basically an aquarium. Huge aquarium for these pupfish. There's some snails. But you can see pupfish swimming. And that is so cool. I'll stand back. That is awesome. So this building inside there is an aquarium that houses the pupfish. There's cattails in there and other different plants. This is so neat. Introducing invasive species to this area is definitely something that contributed to the extinction of certain animals, and crawfish are definitely one of the culprits to the extinction. We are back where we started from. Almost. The water that makes its way down here to Corn Creek Spring is actually from the Sheep Mountain Range behind me. There we go. Those mountains behind me. And the snow melt, it follows the mountain all the way down here and it ends up in the spring. It's crazy how our ecosystem works and how vital everything is that just comes together and makes things survive in the desert. So I think that this is just such a great way to get out and learn about our area and take your kids, take yourself, or whatever you have, and just learn about the area. So Field Trip Friday is basically not really going to be a thing anymore. I'm going to upload videos every other Friday for something like that, and Field Trip Friday will be a lot bigger, but it'll be something that I choose. But I will also be uploading videos every single Tuesday and Sunday, and I want you guys to tell me where to go, places that you've never been or places that you've been. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to let my Patreons pick first. So I'm going to upload basically a huge list of places, and my Patreons, they will vote first, and then I will send 2 options at a time to Instagram where you guys can vote. So if you want to become a Patreon, I will post a link in my bio. You can be a Patreon for as little as $1. So, and it really helps me get out there and show you guys all these awesome things. So I thought that was a really cool addition to the channel to let you guys be more involved. What do you think? What did you guys think about the video? If you liked it, hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, and leave a comment. What do you think about the new changes coming to the channel? And what do you think about this cabin series?